Hundreds of schools have collapsed, having their student and faculty numbers depleted down to the bone, with their alumni now looking for new schools to further their education. Students of the Wayside School, Clone High, Riverdale, and Oran High School, among many others, have their students looking for a new place to learn. The governments of the world are fearing the unemployment rates will skyrocket if nothing is done to alleviate all those dropouts. So they scrounge up 4 potential teachers, and give them each an unlimited budget to craft the school of their dreams, in hopes of attracting the kids back, with an extra incentive being the one with the most enrollment getting to keep their schools, and the others having to forfeit them. The teachers involved with this project are Koro-sensei, the unkillable teacher, Byleth, former professor of Garrick Mock Monastery, Miss Frizzle, the pilot of the Magic School Bus, and Dewey Finn, the man at the top of Mount Rock. So, which of these mentors can muster up the superior lesson plan, and craft the greatest school from nothing? Let the lesson begin.
Good morning, class. Today I, Ribbit, will be teaching you all why Koro-sensei would make the overall best and most successful school of these characters. Okay, so, Koro has some interesting teaching tactics, but ones that I believe are the overall strongest here. I'm going to come right out of the gates and say that I believe that Koro-sensei is the best teacher here. I won't sell anyone else short. Byleth did a bloody good job considering their situation. When she isn't endangering her students, Miss Frizzle can be a pretty damn good teacher too. And Dewey is a solid music teacher. But Koro-sensei is a jack of all trades, a Swiss army knife of a teacher. Koro-sensei is knowledgeable of basically every subject, and can teach them under conditions and in ways that the others simply can't. He's knowledgeable of chemistry and biology, and teaches his students such things by having them come up with their own chemicals. And if it didn't work, he'll stay after school with them until they get it right. He's even given science lessons while flying. He was able to lecture a skilled math teacher easily, and while she was trying to kill him, he was able to tutor one of his students well enough that she was able to ace a math test. Being so athletic, he knows a lot about sports as well. He's travelled to other parts of the world just so he could compare a professional baseball player's build to one of his students. He's built dams for his students to swim in too. His fast flying speeds allow him to take students just about anywhere, even places like Africa for field trips, similar to the field trips that Miss Frizzle takes her students on. Although I'd say Koro-senseis are usually a lot less dangerous and a lot less scarring. English and Japanese are both in his range too. In fact, Koro-sensei has memorized every single question set in the history of Japan. That kind of knowledge is out of everyone else's league. On top of all of this knowledge, he actually fixes aspects of his students' lives. He helped Nagisa with his over-controlling mother and got her to lay off a little. She even let him stay in his class afterwards, which by the way, is a showcase of him getting even the most controlling of parents to let their students attend his classes. He got students' parents back together, he created a massive travel guide for his students when they went on a field trip. This covered a lot of specifics about the area, but it also covered very specific scenarios, like if one was kidnapped, and created a literal tornado just to pep talk his students and clean up the area. He's not just focused on teaching them, he's focused on bettering them as people. He got Karma to apologise without affecting his pride, and taught Okuda the importance of communication skills. While Dewey and Byleth have both done those sorts of things, especially Byleth, the kids who Koro taught were flunkies. Kids who society had given up on, basically. If by the end, Koro can turn a group of people like that into a group of people with successful futures as shown by the time skip, and develop a connection strong enough with them to make someone like Karma cry when he died, I believe he has a lot to brag about on his portfolio in that regard. He's so fast that he taught every single one of his students simultaneously, all in different subjects, including Naruto. This is a guy who writes personalized tests for every single one of his students. A major problem with the education system is that if one student doesn't get a subject, they're kinda screwed. Because if they kept on teaching said subject, those who know it would be wasting their time. This is a problem that, to my knowledge, none of the others are inept from. Just imagine this advertisement for a sec. A teacher who can teach everyone in his class at the same time, helps them overcome their anxieties, can teach every single subject basically, and gives every single one of his students personalized tests so that they can better themselves in every subject that they're struggling with. Koro faces but one issue: his body. He looks like a Pac-Man and Ikamuzume hybrid. Koro-sensei, however, is no stranger to going out and about. He's known for his disguises. I get that he doesn't look particularly convincing, but at most, he gets glances. Most just assume he has some sort of abnormality with his body. It's not like he's just going to enter the classroom as a big giant octopus man. Only a few select people know who he is. Same goes for him blowing up at graduation. All Koro has to do really is just not tell anyone, and bam. He's an oddly tall, sphere-headed guy who's the overall most intelligent and well-rounded teacher here. He let himself get stabbed in the heart to save his students, teach his students lessons by learning about their interests, risked his life to save a student who had been in said class for less than a day, and intentionally endangers his own life just to help his students with an exam. Compare this to others. Dewey only knows one subject. Miss Frizzle consistently puts her classes in danger, and Byleth, who probably could not wrap their head around, computers and stuff, which are kinda mandatory in the modern education system. Koro has failed before, but the difference between the novice and the master is that the master has failed more times than the novice has tried, and I believe Koro-sensei is enough of a master to not fail this time.
If this was a popularity contest based on critical reception and how well loved these characters are, it should go without saying Byleth comes in dead last. But that isn't the case, so Byleth, what is there to say about this mercenary turned professor? Well, a good amount actually, but I'm not here to make 8 nearly identical points with minute differences and try to pass them off as echo arguments. Nah, I've got actual stuff. Byleth hinges on the fact that he, in my eyes, can create the best student-teacher relationship amongst the fellow faculty involved in this debate. When he became a professor at Garrick Mach, he enlisted in one of the titular 3 houses, the Black Eagles, the Blue Lions, or the Golden Deer, each with students drastically different in backgrounds from one another, with drastically different personalities at that. And in each route, Byleth learns to create deep connections with his pupils, helping them solve their innermost problems and qualms, going far beyond the call of duty for a normal teacher, helping Edelgard get over her traumatic past, instilling confidence in Marianne, reaching out and helping Bernadetta come out of her shell, showing Hilda she doesn't need to live in her brother's shadow, helping Linhart get more serious with his studies and not slack off all day, calling Sylvain out for simping, keeping Felix's ego in check, and dealing with weirdos like Annette. But Byleth isn't just a highly skilled warrior. He understands more than the other teachers that his students are, well, people. Even if he deploys them like chess pieces on a board, he views himself as equal to his students. Meanwhile, the other teachers are different stories. Koro-sensei cares enough to personalize tests for all of his students, sure, but what can you really say for a majority of them besides Nagisa, Karma, and Ryoma personality-wise? Not a lot. Dewey and Miss Frizzle have it even worse. They may have standouts like Summer and me, but their overall roster makes less deep cuts than all the students at Garrick Mach. Basically, I'm saying Byleth has the most experience dealing with deeper, more grounded human problems. You could argue that at this new school being founded from the ground up, that there'd be far too many students for him to handle, but his ideologies would be rooted in the school from the jump, and would go on to shape the attitudes of the fellow teachers he'd hire. Funnily enough, I'm arguing the character with the most blood on his hands is going to create the nicest environment for everyone attending his classes. Far safer than the monster threatening to blow up the moon, or the teacher who constantly puts her students in danger. And hey, Byleth is definitely one for school spirit, taking part in annual fishing competitions, monastery choir performances, and even winning the Battle of Eagle and Lion. I bet he could rile up all the box tops for some sweet cash. Koro-sensei? Oh, he got made fun of during a school assembly, and he's the only one here who isn't physically human. I know he actually is a human, and he's definitely the one with the biggest heart here, but I think it'd be pretty terrifying to roll up on your first day with a scary monster man telling you to sit next to his desk. Miss Frizzle? Yeah, she's appealing to elementary school students. I seriously doubt any older kids would want to go on her field trips. Meanwhile, Byleth has experience with a wide age range from the young and Cyril to Mercedes, who's in her early 20s. Basically meaning he can teach up to the college level. And Dewey? While I do like his music, he's actually a pretty lousy teacher. He went the Max Grabelski route and BS'd his way into becoming a teacher. Byleth may mainly have his experience in teaching skills like sword fighting, Pegasus lancing, and more combat-centric stuff, but I'd argue he'd make for one hell of a history teacher. He didn't just live through a war, he ended one. He's not just a devout churchgoer. His green hairdo is due to being tied to the progenitor god, Sothis. Imagine getting a history lesson from someone who's basically talked to God. You can argue my professor is a blank slate, but that just means he can achieve anything the player desires, and thus, anything his students and their families desire. You can argue that he has the least practical experience, as he was just thrown into the teacher position by Lady Rhea, but that shows he can adapt to new situations he's put into quickly, like running a school. Plus, what motivation do the others have over Byleth? Koro-sensei cares far too much about his 3E students, and Miss Frizzle's in the same boat, or bus, with her kids. Byleth cares for his students even beyond whatever class he's assigned to teach, recruiting them to join his lessons if they desire. So, Byleth. He has the means to create deeper and more meaningful connections, has the school spirit to boot, plus he's powerful, but in a far safer way than Frizzle and Koro-sensei. I don't think any school bullies would want to risk getting a sword through the chest. And Dewey, I think he should just stick to eating dumplings and making Jablinski games. Knowing time betrays, I believe Byleth will make the next greatest school. Just imagine it, a legendary hero putting his skill down to create a school fun for all ages. You may not care for him in the Fighter's Pass, but anyone would be lucky to have a teacher like Byleth. He doesn't need a god-shattering star to wish upon to get this fate. Second period is about to end, so I'll hand it over to Ducko for your next class.
Here is something to believe in!
Seatbelts, everyone!
I'm going to just start right off the bat. Miss Frizzle is the most useful one here. Her classes and series are literally meant to teach science, a very practical and applicable field. I very much appreciate music and the arts, so Dewey, for me, is surprisingly second place. Koro-sensei is training kids to kill people. I mean, the name makes it pretty obvious, I think. Okay, he knows a lot, but in a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none way, possibly. I'll get more to that later. Byleth is arguably doing the same, but in medieval times. These aren't schools, they're militias. Some people might appreciate that, but I'm not sure most would be accepting of sending their kids off to murder with Walmart hentai, or the Stepford Lord stuck in the Dark Ages. You might be saying, well, Miss Frizzle's classes are dangerous too. Are they, ultimately? All the kids in her class are alive by the end of each episode, even in the infamous case of Arnold taking his helmet off in space. For one thing, it's usually the kids doing things recklessly. In this case, Arnold himself. He was all like, no, this isn't fun to do, and he decided to make it bad by himself. Miss Frizzle immediately got it under control and got them all back to Earth, with Arnold only having a cold as an after effect. Compared to that, any other situation that could arise in classes would be easy to deal with. And getting back to the matter of her field probably being the most important, her and her magic school bus are capable of numerous things that are deemed impossible by current science. Time travel, faster than light space travel, shrinking down to the microscopic level and performing medical examinations, numerous types of vehicles all in one due to transformations. All of these would be a boon to scientific discovery. She could do a lot more to advance her field of study than anyone else. We could find out how the dinosaurs truly were. We could discover the cures to illnesses. We could discover renewable sources of energy. The possibilities are potentially endless, especially if she passes on her vast knowledge to a wider generation who could go on even further with such discoveries. As much as I like music, it won't be as valuable as the numerous scientific discoveries one could make because of Miss Frizzle and her magic school bus. Plus, apparently magic exists, so that's another thing she's got. I suppose Koro-sensei and Dewey can be said to know how to teach other subjects, but they lack the total expertise in these general subjects that Miss Frizzle has in the sciences. And if you're worried about her dealing with other subjects, need I remind you that she can time travel and shrink down to be a fly on the wheel, meaning she could study history directly. And she even matches Dewey in having been a touring musician alongside the famous rocker Molly Kuehl. You see, it's like the word molecule. She was also a stage actress. She continues to excel in athletics, ranging from swimming to acrobatics to track and field, has a doctorate in philosophy, in addition to her scientific and educational qualifications, and she later went on to become a professor. So not only is she the most skilled in a field that is the most studious, she is also multifaceted, and has, in fact, worked at the college level, not just the elementary school level. I feel like I've gone on with how skilled and qualified Miss Frizzle is, but maybe I should go a little more into why the others aren't as qualified, if you ask me. Miss Frizzle has the right balance of fun-loving attributes, fearlessness, and serious educational skills, but the others are imbalanced in this case. Dewey has less experience and has slacked off for longer. He can get along with the kids, and he became a better teacher by the end, but considering how much Frizz's kids like her, and how much more experienced she is, I feel like she has the edge here. Koro-sensei is fun-loving himself, but kind of in the same way that the Joker is. I'll admit he's more compassionate than that, but he's a freaky, grinning being who teaches the kids to shoot at him. I would say taking chances, making mistakes, and getting messy should probably not involve shooting someone. As for Byleth, they are, again, stuck in medieval times, meaning they cannot relate to a modern type of schooling as much. And again, what they mainly teach is killing, And what's more, they are also apparently a rookie, so they're also sort of stumbling into being a teacher, much like Dewey Finn. Also again, they're more monotone than Microsoft's Sam. Whether it's the male or female option, hearing them talk for a long amount of time will not hold as much interest as the other three. And of these other three, Miss Frizzle is both the most qualified and the least homicidal. While it can come across as weird to start laughing when a giant spider is about to kill you, I'll grant you. Dewey Finn might be less homicidal, but I feel like Frizzle just has a brave stance in the face of danger. The only thing I'd say Byleth would have over the others is sex appeal, but that's not enough. And Miss Frizzle and Jack Black have their charms anyways. Plus, it's about teaching, not that. So in total, I would say Miss Frizzle is the most qualified, most skilled, less murderous than at least two of them, and has the widest array of applicable fields to teach in. Seatbelts, everyone!
I've been seeing a lot of you doubt Dewey Finn's abilities here. But, much like the teachers at Horace Green, you'll soon learn that all of the students will like Dewey more than any other teacher. Hello, I am Max, and I'm going to teach rock to the world! And of course, make a case for Dewey Finn from School of Rock. So, if Dewey is entrusted to make a school and have it lure in the most students, I think he's got a good chance at making the kids prefer his school to the other ones. Dewey can make music about the school he's creating to boost its appeal. He did create a song about math on the spot, so with some guidance from his students and Miss Mullins, he could sing more accurately about the school this time. People will remember the school better if it's got multiple catchy songs attached to it. Plus, Dewey will make the school look much more fun, considering it's mostly going to be his design. He could even get his students from Horace Green to help him make it, and it'll really appeal to kids at that point. Once the kids are all stoked to attend Dewey Finn's school, they'll endlessly nag at their parents to let them go here. I mean, Dewey at the end convinces the parents of Horace Green that he can teach his kids to be really happy when they were initially miserable. What parent doesn't want their kids to be happy? It may help the parents make their choice when they learn that Dewey was a teacher at the most prestigious school around. Even if he was posing as Ned Schneebly, at the end he still got to teach his music classes while tied to the school, so that's something he can brag about. But obviously, Dewey really only knows about rock. But thankfully, by the end, Dewey and Miss Mullins get together, and she'd gladly help Dewey get experienced teachers for his new school. And Dewey can teach them to not be such tight asses, like he did with the teachers at Horace Green. Or maybe he could just get some teachers from Horace Green. I do think the more chill nature of Dewey's school is going to be a major selling point. And if they have some teachers from Horace Green, the parents will know that the kids will be taught well in spite of this. But let's put the guitar down for a bit and turn our focus to Dewey's competition. Koro-sensei is a massive threat to the Earth if not disposed of in 1 year. There's no scenario where he has more than 1 year to live, since that's when he became an octopus creature to begin with. Why would you pick a school whose leader only intends to be around for a single year? The government will keep trying to take him out during this time too, so he could eventually be exposed. The school he worked at eventually fell under fire when everyone learned what he was doing, so this is likely to happen. Not to mention that he was originally an assassin who had killed hundreds of people. If that past gets leaked out, his chances are doomed. I agree he's the best teacher here, but he's got the most baggage out of the bunch. He'd need to disguise himself, and the students in his class have even considered his disguises lame. Eventually, characters who are wiser, like Byleth and Miss Frizzle, will end up exposing him. Miss Frizzle could even go back in time to help bring these truths to light, something she may be willing to do if she gets really suspicious about Sensei and wants to protect the kids. Since these are different universes merging, judging by the inclusion of schools like Clone High and Riverdale, we can't count on the entire population falling for these disguises anymore. Miss Frizzle endangers her kids every single day, and I recall she got Arnold in a situation where he took off his helmet in outer space. That's just scratching the surface. She endangers her kids every day. Granted, she usually has a plan to save them, but the threat alone should make her a no-go. No sane parent would send their kids here, and no sane kid would want to almost die every day. You know what? Miss Frizzle must be on crack, right kids? I'm like Arnold with this shit. Please don't let these kids go on another field trip. Byleth seems to be a mercenary, which is not the kind of job you'd want to have on your resume when trying to convince parents to trust you with their kids. Byleth might go kindergarten cop on them and try to get the kids to rat out some targets he's hunting.
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?
Koro-sensei is an assassin too, so same thing here. But unique to Byleth is that he existed long ago, and he's basically like an out-of-date history book that needs to be updated. things have changed, and his knowledge may not be all up to date. Though, if I'm being honest, I don't see why the teacher being so smart is such a big deal in all of this. Yeah, I know, of course I'd be saying that, because I'm going for Dewey Finn. But honestly, they're likely getting teachers for their school anyways, and may only need to teach a few classes themselves. They don't need to be a jack of all trades or a man who lived through history. They just need to make a cool looking school and be appealing to the parents. Meanwhile, Dewey's worst offense was pretending to be a teacher when he wasn't. But then he officially became a teacher, and if not for him, the kids at Horace Green would be miserable forever. Dewey's reputation as a fraud doesn't detract from the fact that he got to know all of the kids, and helped them through some struggles they were going through with their families. He got them over their insecurities and everything by being there to listen to them. So it's actually a good thing he did what he did. And that's why, by the end of the day, Dewey will have climbed his way to the top of Mount Rock, and once the gates to their schools have unlocked, he will have proven why he was the best teacher for this job.
Let's get rocking!
It's time for recess. We can all take our break.
Hopefully you were taking notes during the lesson, and can formulate a comment to help prove a case for one of these teachers, or soon-to-be principals.
Check out the Galaxy Video Ko-fi and Patreon pages in the description, as well as links to Brandon and Ribbit's Twitter and channels, among other links.
Class dismissed.